No, you know that something else needs to be worked on. Especially if you're dealing with somebody who emotionally just doesn't know where they're at right now, because I kind of feel like that is the Page of Cups. Now, the way that you come into this, or first of all, I should say, with the High Priestess being the overall, this to me is like intuitively knowing something but not having the facts to support it. That's how I usually describe the High Priestess. Now, I think that for you, it may be some things that you've been keeping to yourself. And I say that because of the Hangman being on your side. It made sense when I pulled it out, because I thought, you know, with the Hangman flipping out the way it did, yeah, it's about something that's not like intentionally being kept hidden, but it's something that needs to be dealt with that maybe nobody is really wanting to talk about, but I think you're the one that's going to have to speak up and say something, especially if you've been keeping emotions to yourself in regards to the other person. But I also feel like the other person doesn't really have themselves together emotionally, because I see them wanting to go, go, go. Now, in the past here, what you're bringing into this, the King of Swords, this in terms of you, whether you're male or female, it doesn't matter to me. This would be like you trying to rationalize whether or not the relationship is worth moving forward on. Now, that may be the other person, though, for you, whether they're male, female, air sign, doesn't matter. And it could be that they're trying to communicate to you that they've been looking at the relationship with you and looking at, you know, potentially moving things forward here. And I say that because of what they're showing. Now, the Seven of Pentacles would suggest that they've been taking a look at, you know, everything that, you know, the relationship has to show for itself, right? With the Seven of Pentacles, you're talking about reevaluating what you have. You know, but I think that it's them that wants to move things forward. But I think that there are other things that, you know, you're going to have to open up and talk about when it comes to not just your emotions, but the way that they are emotionally. Now, moving out of that, with the Three of Pentacles, you're talking about the both of you wanting to work together. You know, and I don't see Virgo ever having a problem with that. You know, the only warning there would be that you can't fix somebody, you know. Now, that may not be the case for all of you, but because of the Eight of Pentacles coming out, I feel like they're going to have to put in a lot of hard work to fix some things, because I think the both of you are going to be at a place where you're both thinking about just walking away from this. But anyway, the Three of Pentacles. So working on things together, they're showing the Chariot, which is wanting to give the relationship a sense of direction, but they may be moving forward a little bit too quickly. I think that you understand that it's going to take a lot more to get to where you want to be in regards to this relationship with this person, you know, because you're showing the Three. And then eventually here, there's still a lot more that needs to be taken care of. Now, with the Hangman, they may be trying to move things a little bit too quickly, and you may need to kind of take a step back. And it may be for some of you that you're looking at this relationship and whether or not you really want to put in the effort. You know, but like I said, I feel like it's because you're dealing with somebody who really has not gotten control over their own emotions. Now, with the Eight of Wands, this to me is like you take a pause and there's not a whole lot of contact between the two of you. There may be like, you know, the communication definitely that's going back and forth. But, you know, I don't necessarily feel like this is about traveling. Not with the Eight of Wands. Now, with the Chariot, maybe. You know, and it may be that this person is at a distance from you. Some of you may be working on a long-distance relationship, which is possible. But the way that you're moving in here, this is going to be about the things that, you know, you're keeping to yourself, or the things that you may be intuitively feeling and knowing about this person, maybe wanting to go a little bit too quickly, especially if in the past you may not have seen, you know, exactly what you wanted in this relationship, right? And again, I say that because of the Seven of Pentacles. But to me, on their side, it looks like they're looking at it and wanting more. Now, with your outcome here, the Page of Cups landing on your side, I do think that there are new emotions for you. Now, absolutely, the Page of Cups could be about another offer that's coming through, something that, you have some feelings around that you may not be, open about. And it's not that you're intentionally trying to hide anything, but then I also feel like for some of you, you may be dealing with somebody who is emotionally immature, because this is too quick, too quick. Now, with the Eight of Cups being right in the center here, you know, this may also be what, you know, you may be kind of keeping to yourself, the thought or the idea of wanting to move on because you've invested so much into it, and are you really seeing what you want? Because, you know, in the past, like, I don't feel like, you know, it was a great start. I feel like there's definitely history between you and that person, whoever it is that you're focused on. But with the Eight of Pentacles coming out, that to me is just, it's too much. There's too much effort that needs to be put in, or they are the ones that are going to have to put in more. You know, and what I worry about here, because you're showing the Three of Pentacles, is, you know, a little bit of self-sacrifice here, especially with the Hangman. I mean, when you think about the Hangman, right? And then Death, damn, man. All right. So the way that I'm looking at this, going back to dealing with somebody who hasn't really dealt with their emotions, they may be becoming a little bit more emotionally available to you, right? With the King of Cups, male, female, doesn't matter to me. But with the Two of Swords, right, is it really worth it? Is it really worth doing? And I think that the both of you are kind of in this place right now, but I think that they haven't really, you know, talked to you though either about their indecision, because that's what I feel like this is about. You know, like, it's just too much that they don't want to invest into, but I feel like Virgo is definitely open to doing it to a point. You know, because again, we're looking at the Eight of Cups between the two of you. The Hierophant and the Two of Cups. This would be, you know, needing to put in a lot of hard work here and making the choice to, you know, have like the traditional relationship, being a little bit more committed here, or at least seeing eye to eye on what the both of you want in terms of the relationship, whether it's traditional or non-traditional, right? But I feel like this is something that, you know, I feel like you need. Right? Especially if you're dealing with somebody who, you know, is not really that in control of their emotions, because that's what I get from that. It would have been different had the Eight of Cups not been there with the High Priestess. I mean, you know, these are things that are not out in the open. It's definitely about information that becomes available. But what I don't like is that, you know, there shouldn't be any indecision. If they were wanting to move this quickly to begin with, why is it that, you know, all the hard work is like, wait a minute, I don't know if I want to do that. Now, coming out of this with Death and the Fool. Death, like I always say, is definitely a good thing, right? These are the things that need to be done and over with in order for things to change. Now, you know, I don't necessarily feel like you're calling it quits, because we're not looking at a 10 between the two of you. We're looking at the 8. I feel like it's not the end of the relationship, but it's the end of the way that you used to view this person. You know, because you're looking at them much differently with that Page of Cups being there. Now, for some of you, like I said, this could absolutely be about, you know, a different offer coming through, especially if you're not getting commitment from a specific person, right? But with the Fool, though, if things change and the old way of doing things is over with, then the Fool would suggest that it would be easier for you to have a little bit of faith. Not just you, but them as well. My problem is the Eight of Cups. Do you feel like you may be being, you know, a little bit too open to trusting? Is it too much of a risk, right? You know, and again, the reason why I say that is because of the Eight of Cups. That kind of puts a little bit of a taint on what's happening between the two of you in the outcome. You know, but it doesn't mean that the relationship is completely over with. But there's definitely some things that need to change, and some things that do need to be done and over with if you're going to put in the hard work here. Especially when it comes to dealing with somebody who may not have been, you know, very committed. Right? Because there shouldn't be that difficult choice. You know, they may not want to have that kind of committed relationship, but yet they still want to be connected to you. Is that worth the risk? And then the Ace of Swords. All right. So for those of you who are single, first of all, right, no matter what is going on here, you know, with a person that things are building with, Things are starting to build with this person. And what I worry about, though, is that for some of you, you may be putting your happiness into their hands with the Seven of Cups and then looking at the Three of Cups. I think that you're fantasizing that they're going to be the one to mend your broken heart. I mean, that would be the best way to put it for me, especially with love yourself first coming out on this, right? Because it's more important to love who you are, not depend on another person to, you know, kind of heal the damage that you may have been through. And again, general, okay? So with Temperance and the Two of Wands, you're talking about a relationship that's building. The passion is starting to build. Some of you have been kind of like holding back, not getting like too involved. But with the Two of Wands, you're definitely getting to know each other. There's a little bit of flirting going on. Now, my problem is the Seven of Cups. This is fantasizing about what could be with this person. And like I said, with the Three of Cups, you're talking about somebody who is going to mend your broken heart. Now, for some of you, like I've said before, with the Three of Cups and the Nine of Swords, they're essentially the same idea, but different aspects. It's about getting back together. One is the best case scenario. The Nine of Swords would be the worst. So this could be about, you know, getting in contact with somebody probably from the past, meeting them in a very different way, or getting to know them all over again. And feeling like, you know, maybe they're going to be the ones that comes through and kind of fixes things for you. But now moving out of this with the Four of Cups and looking at the Ace of Swords, the Four of Cups, this is falling into routine where, you know, there isn't a whole lot of passion, a whole lot of excitement. For some of you, yeah, you may be a little bit like, nah, right? Like not interested. You know, it's almost like they aren't what you really thought they were going to be. And with the Ace of Swords, you're talking about trusting this person. I think that some of you are either being open to trusting that this person is going to give you what you're needing. Now, on the other hand, with the Ace of Swords, you are talking about truth and communication, though, too. So it could be that you're being open and honest about the fact that maybe you're not as interested as you thought you were. All right, so, you know, this could definitely be somebody that you have known from the past. Looking at the world, though, definitely there's something building between the two of you. And I think that you are hoping that this is going to be a relationship that is, you know, everything that you want it to be. Because with the world, you're talking about a relationship where you feel complete, where you feel whole, right? Now, for some of you, it's, you know, you're getting to a place where things are going good in your life. You may have had some closure on some issues, or may have thought you had, right? But it's like looking at this person and hoping that they're going to be the ones that kind of fills the gap. Now, with the King of Swords, I don't think that that's the case. Because, you know, again, right, you're talking about fantasizing about what could be, and this person being the one that kind of heals things for you. But with the King of Swords, that is not that person. That is not that person. This is somebody who, you know, first of all, I say a lot of times you question on whether or not, you know, they're being faithful, which can be, you know, the case with him, but also very emotionally detached, not, you know, as open as you want them to be. You know, they may just want, you know, a quick connection, but they're not really giving you anything else on an emotional level. Now, coming out, though, with the Knight of Pentacles, I think that you're okay with it. And I think that for some of you, you're just not happy with who they are. And I don't mean that in a bad way or that they're a bad person, but it's like you get to a point where you realize that they're not going to live up to what you've been fantasizing about. I mean, and that's basically it. But this is like getting to a place of, okay, there's trust, there's understanding, but let's just be friends, right? I mean, that is the Knight of Pentacles. It's like somebody offering you something and you're going, oh, that's nice, but, you know, I don't really need it, or I don't really want it. But there's no hostility there. You know, and I do think that for some of you, you get to that place where you realize, you're right, you have to love yourself first. And the Eight of Cups, all right. So here's what I'm getting. There's not enough to keep this relationship going. And that's kind of what, you know, is coming out in the end here. But I get the feeling that it's going to have to do with you. Now, the Queen of Wands, we could be talking about you or the other person here. And you guys know how I feel about queens. It's usually what we're internalizing. The kings would be what we're projecting out. The Queen of Wands, though, if this is about you, for a lot of you, you're keeping your options open. Now, a lot of times she can be looked at as the person who is not available. Now, for some of you, you know, maybe you aren't available. Maybe you are in a relationship, but maybe there isn't a whole lot to the relationship. That, or you're dealing with somebody who is acting this way. But the Eight of Swords is talking about being put in an uncomfortable position based on lust, right? Because you got the devil. Now, I do think that some of you may be in this place right now. Now, I don't necessarily see you doing anything that, you know, would be considered cheating if you are in a relationship. I just think that for some of you, you may have like a lot of different people around you and you're not really committed to one relationship, you know, one way or the other. You know, but you may be dealing with a person who's looking at you like, yeah, I want to be in this relationship with you, but for you, maybe it's not enough. Now, coming out of this, and the reason why I say that is because of the Six of Wands. This is somebody who's continuously putting themselves out there. You know, especially with the Queen of Wands kicking it off, but looking at the Nine of Wands, this is somebody who wants to come in and like try to fix things, you know, and now they may be putting themselves out there and trying to get your attention. But I don't know, because with this coming through, it kind of feels like I don't want you to be available to other people. I want you to be available to me. Okay, and that would be, you know, the other person speaking to Virgo on this. Now, coming out of this, you do have the Ace of Wands, so there is a, like, restart, you know, jumping from the 9 to the 1, so the relationship didn't end by any means, but the problem is with the Eight of Cups. The Ace of Wands could definitely show fertility in some cases here, but, you know, I don't really see that in this case. I feel like this is, you know, trying to get past, you know, what is happening in the past, right? Like getting over that, starting over. There's a lot of passion, but it may be one-sided, again, because of, you know, unrequited love. Now with the Eight of Cups, for you, you may be like, okay, I'm here, but don't push it. Like, don't push me. You know, I feel like what's going on here is that, and like I said, you can flip the script on this, but I feel like it's Virgo. I feel like it's Virgo that doesn't really want to commit one way or another. But I do think that you're dealing with a person who believes that they should be in a relationship with you, or that they are in a relationship with you. But like I said, for you, it just may not be enough. Now, the Ten of Swords. The Ten of Swords, here's the thing. If you are dealing with a person where there just isn't enough, the reason why there may not be enough to keep it going is because there may have been a really painful ending in the past for you. That, or you're talking about, you know, somebody who can't get over the fact that you may not have wanted them in the past. Now, coming into the Nine of Wands with the Knight of Cups, and looking at the Six of Wands, this is definitely about somebody who is having encounters, right? And they're putting themselves out there and having this encounter, but somebody else doesn't want that to happen. But I think that, you know, like I said, especially if you were the one that went through the Ten of Swords, it would make sense that you don't really want to commit to this person. You're okay with them being around. But as far as, like, you know, committing to them, I don't think that that's something that you want to do. Now, like I said, this could be the other person, though. We can flip this around. You may be dealing with a person that's like that. You know, there may have been a painful ending in the past. You may want them to commit to you, but yet they keep putting themselves out there. But I swear to God, I get the feeling that for a lot of you, it's going to be about from your perspective here. You being the one that doesn't really want to because there's not enough. You know, and it would make sense, right? Now, the Eight of Pentacles coming out on this. This is somebody who has too many other things that they're focused on. You know, whether it's career or it's just other things in their life in general. Like, I don't have time to play with you. Don't push it. Like, don't push it, right? And it could just be that you're dealing with somebody who isn't interested. They're willing to give it a shot, but, you know, it's like They're not, and you know, it's funny because it's almost like the same message here. They're just not going to give you what you need or what you want. You know, there's not a whole lot of interest, and there just isn't enough on somebody's part.